There's a weird obsession that President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever accomplishment was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden. For example, they created within the White House an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got rid of it.
Not true.
There was a team of disease experts that President Obama and Vice President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans who have lost their lives. Let's look at the job situation. We mentioned before the trade deal, the trade war, they wanted to call it, with China. It resulted in the loss of over 300 manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing recession, and the American consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods because of that failed war that they called it. Then let's talk about standing. Pew, a reputable research firm, has done an analysis that shows that leaders of all of our formerly allied countries have now decided that they hold in greater esteem and respect Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, than they do Donald Trump, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. This is where we are today because of a failure of leadership by this administration.
Senator Harris, we've seen changes in the role of the United States in terms of global leadership over the past 4 years. And of course, times do change. What's your definition? We've seen strains with China, of course, as the Vice President mentioned. We've seen strains with our traditional allies in NATO and elsewhere. What is your definition of the role of American leadership in 2020?
So
long time after, bro. I know it's been a while.
A lot of these issues, and Joe, I think he said it quite well. He says, foreign policy, it might sound complicated, but really it's relationships. So just think about it as relationships. And so we know this in our personal and professional relationships. You got to keep your word to your friends. You got to be loyal to your friends. People who've stood with you, got to stand with them. You got to know who your adversaries are and keep them in check. But what we have seen with Donald Trump is that he has betrayed our friends and embraced dictators around the world. Let's take, for example, Russia. So, Russia, I serve on the Intelligence Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us
I'm doing good, man. How you
Russia
doing?
interfered in the election of the President of the United States in 2016 and is playing in 2020. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, said the same. But Donald Trump, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America, prefers to take the word of Vladimir Putin over the word of the American intelligence community. You look at our friends at NATO. He's walked away from agreements. You can look at the Iran nuclear deal, which now has put us in a position where we are less safe because they are building up
That's good.
what might end up being a significant nuclear arsenal.
Glad you guys are doing good.
That deal, guys, we were in the Iran nuclear deal with friends, with allies around the country, and because of Donald Trump's unilateral approach to foreign policy, coupled with his isolationism, he pulled us out and has made America less safe. So, Susan, it's about relationships. And the thing that has always been part of the strength of our nation, in addition to our great military, has been that we keep our word. But Donald Trump doesn't understand that because he doesn't understand what it means to be honest.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President, can somebody give you a chance to respond?
Well, thank you. Well, President Trump kept his word when we moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel. When Joe Biden was vice president, they promised to do that, and they never did. We stood strong with our allies, but we've been demanding. NATO is now contributing more to our common defense than ever before, thanks to President Trump's leadership. We've strengthened our alliances across the Asia-Pacific, and we've stood strong against those who would do us harm. When President Trump came into office, ISIS had captured an area of the Middle East the size of Pennsylvania. But President Trump unleashed the American military, and our armed forces destroyed the ISIS caliphate and took down their leader al-Baghdadi without one American casualty. Al-Baghdadi was responsible for the death of thousands, but notably America's hearts today are with the family of Kayla Mueller, the parents of which are here with us tonight in Salt Lake City. Today, two of the ISIS killers responsible for Kayla Mueller's murder were brought to justice in the United States. Jihadi John was killed on the battlefield along with the other Beetle. The reality is that when Joe Biden was vice president, we had an opportunity to save Kayla Mueller. It breaks my heart to reflect on it, but the military came into the Oval Office, presented a plan. They said they knew where Kayla was. Baghdadi had held her for 18 months, abused her mercilessly before they killed her. But when Joe Biden was vice president, they hesitated for a month. And when armed forces finally went in, it was clear she'd been moved 2 days earlier. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla would be alive today.
Thank you, Vice
Look, we
President.
destroyed the ISIS caliphate. And you talk about re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. I mean, the last administration transferred $1.8 billion to the leading state sponsor
Thank you, Vice
of
President.
terrorism. President Donald Trump got us out of the deal.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
And when Qasem Soleimani was traveling to Baghdad,
Thank you, Vice
do
President
harm
Pence.
to Americans, President Donald Trump took
Thank you, Vice
out.
President Pence.
And America is safer, our allies are safer, and the American people know President Donald Trump will never have
Thank you, Vice President.
to take action.
I would like to give Senator Harris a chance to respond, but not at such great length because, of course, there are other topics we want to talk
But
about.
I would like equal time.
Yes,
Thank you.
please go ahead.
First of all, to the Mueller family, I know about your daughter's case, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What happened to her is awful, and it should have never happened. And I know Joe feels the same way. And I know that President Obama feels the same way.
I don't know anything about
Like you
that.
mentioned Soleimani. Let's start there. So after the strike on Soleimani, there was a counter strike on our troops in Iraq. And they suffered serious brain injuries. And do you know what Donald Trump dismissed them as? Headaches. And this is about a pattern of Donald Trump's, where he has referred to our men who are serving in our military as suckers and losers.
Oh, Lord. Here
Donald
we go.
Trump, who went to Arlington Cemetery and stood above the graves of our fallen heroes and said, what's in it for them? Because, of course, you know, he only thinks about what's in it for him. Let's take what he said about John McCain, a great American hero. And Donald Trump says he doesn't deserve to be called a hero because he was a prisoner of war. And this is very important when you want to talk about who is the current commander-in-chief and what they care about and what they don't care about. Public reporting that Russia had bounties on the heads of American soldiers. And you know what a bounty is? It's somebody puts a price on your head and they will pay it if you are killed. And Donald Trump had talked at least 6 times to Vladimir Putin and never brought up the subject. Joe Biden would never do that.
Thank you.
Joe Biden would, but Joe Biden
Yeah.
would hold Russia to account for any threat to our nation's security or to our troops who are sacrificing their lives for the sake of our democracy and our safety.
Thank you, Senator Harris. This is such an important issue, but we have other important issues as well, and
Susan,
I want to make sure we have a chance
I really
to
have
talk
to respond to
about.
that. Look, she has.
15 seconds because
Well, I gotta have
we're trying
more
to
than that. Look.
Well, I'm sorry, Vice President, but
Look,
you've
I-
had more time than she's
The-
had
the
so far.
slanders against President Donald Trump regarding men and women of our armed forces are absurd.
I'm sorry, Vice
My
President
son is
Pence.
a captain in the United
Yes.
States Marine Corps. My son-in-law is deployed in the United States Navy. I can assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres all of those who serve in our armed forces, and any suggestion otherwise is ridiculous. Let
Thank
me
you,
also
Vice
say,
President Pence.
the
Vice
American
President
people
Pence,
deserve, Susan,
Vice
the American
President
people
Pence, I
deserve to
didn't,
know.
Vice President Pence, I did not,
Susan, the
I did
American
not
people
create
deserve
the
to know.
rules for tonight.
Joe Biden.
Your campaigns agreed to the rules for tonight's debate with the Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm here to enforce them, which involves moving from one topic to another, giving roughly equal time to both of you, which is what I'm trying very hard to do.
Go right ahead.
So I want to go ahead and move to the next topic, which is an important one, as the last topic was, and that is the Supreme Court. On Monday, the Senate Judiciary Committee is scheduled to open hearings on Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. Senator Harris, you'll be there as a member of the committee. Her confirmation would cement the court's conservative majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling. Access to abortion would then be up to the states. Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want your home state to ban all abortions? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that very important issue before. The American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, was responsible for the death of hundreds of American service members. When the opportunity came, we saw him headed to Baghdad to kill more Americans. President Trump didn't hesitate, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. But you deserve to know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually criticized the decision to take out Qasem Soleimani. It's really inexplicable, but with regard to Joe Biden, it's explainable. Because history records that Joe Biden actually opposed the raid against Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely essential that we have a commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect American lives and to protect American service members, and that's what you have in President Donald Trump. Now, with regard to the Supreme Court of the United States, let me say President Trump and I could not be more enthusiastic about the opportunity to see Judge Amy Coney Barrett become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. And she's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience and a sizable American family to the Supreme Court of the United States. And our hope is, in the hearing next week, unlike Justice Kavanaugh received with treatment from you and others, we hope she gets a fair hearing. And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before. I mean, the Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee before, when Judge Barrett was being confirmed for the Court of Appeals, expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin of Illinois said that it was a concern. Senator, I know one of our judicial nominees you actually attacked because they were a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus, just because the Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views. And
Thank you, Vice President.
So
Your
my
time
hope is
up.
that when the hearing takes place, that
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
that Judge Amy Coney Barrett will be respected,
Thank you,
be
Vice President
respectfully
Pence.
voted and confirmed
Thank
to the
you.
Supreme Court of the United States.
Senator Harris, you're the senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one I posed to the Vice President. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact no restrictions on access to abortion? And you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. First of all, Joe Biden and I are both people of faith, and it's insulting to suggest that we would knock anyone for their faith. And in fact, Joe, if elected, will be only the second practicing Catholic as president of the United States. On the issue of this nomination, Joe and I are very clear, as are the majority of the American people. We are 27 days before the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And, you know, before, when this conversation has come up, you know, it's been about election year or election time. We're literally in an election. Over 4 million people have voted. People are in the process of voting right now. And so Joe has been very clear, as the American people are. Let the American people fill that seat in the White House, and then we'll fill that seat on the United States Supreme Court. And to your point, Susan, the issues before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice. And I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and the Vice President, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act. Like, literally in the midst of a public health pandemic, when over 210,000 people have died and 7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a
When it comes to
pre-existing
that
condition
statement,
because you
when it
contracted
comes
the
to
virus.
like
Donald Trump is in court
the
right now trying to
pro-choice
get rid of the
argument,
Affordable Care Act. And I said it before.
you can't
and
get
it
my
bears
vote.
repeating.
Well,
This
if that's the
means
case, I
that there will
don't
be
think
no
that
more
is right
protections if they
to
win for people with
be doing
pre-existing
stuff like that.
conditions.
So,
This means
unfortunately,
that
they
over
can't get my
200
vote for
million
that.
people will lose your coverage.
You know,
It means that if you're
I know
under the
I respect
26,
other
you
people's
can't
choice,
stay on your parents'
but for
coverage
me
anymore.
personally, I
And
just
here's
don't
the
think
thing.
it's right to
The
do something
contract's
like
couldn't be
that.
more clear.
And
They're
I
trying to
think
get rid
that
of the Affordable
like,
Care Act. Joe
you
Biden is
know,
saying, let's expand coverage. Let's give you a
so
choice
that's
of
just
public
my
option or private
choice.
coverage.
But
Let's
you
bring
know,
down payment
that's
rates.
my
Let's lower
opinion
Medicare
about it. I don't
eligibility
think
to
that it's right
60.
to
Thank you.
abort
So
kids.
that's
That's
true
just my
leadership.
opinion. But
You mentioned
I'm not going to demonize
earlier,
anybody
Vice
that does
President
that
Pence, that the
because,
president
you
was
know,
committed
everybody's
to
different. But
maintaining
I'm not going to
protections
vote
people
for
with
them
pre-existing conditions.
if that's the case.
But you do
So
have this court case that you are supporting,
that's just
your
my
administration
opinion.
supporting, that would strike
But
down the
let me
Affordable
know what
Care
you guys
Act.
think in the
The
comment
president
section
says,
below.
President Trump says that he's
What
going
you
to
guys
protect people
find
with
interesting about this
pre-existing
debate.
conditions, but he has not explained how he would do that. And that was one of the toughest nuts to crack when they were passing the Affordable Care Act. So tell us specifically, how would your administration protect Americans with pre-existing
I'm not really
conditions
into
to
politics
access
like
to
that
affordable
either. I'm
insurance
just watching
if
the
the
debate,
Affordable
just,
Care Act is struck
you know,
down?
just to see it.
Well,
It's
thank you,
entertaining,
Susan.
though,
Let
so.
me just say, addressing your very first question, I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. Late-term abortion. They want to increase funding.
Which is
to
crazy,
Planned
by the way.
Parenthood
Late-term
of
abortion.
America. Now, for our part, I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed? I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack
But yeah,
Obama.
that's just my opinion by it. Late-term abortions, you know, I believe, like, when it comes to that situation, you know, children are, you know, gifts and stuff. And I believe that, like, when it comes to, like, some people, like, for example, some couples that doesn't have kids or can't have kids, you know, they would love to have the opportunity to have a kid. So, you know, I just don't believe in that. In the research that I did when it came to, like, abortion and stuff, it just doesn't make any sense to me. You know, that's just my thing.
In 1861,
I'd like you to answer the question.
Yes, Vice President speaking. I'm speaking. Okay. In 1864, one of the, I think, political heroes, certainly the president, I assume if he's also Mr. Vice President, is Abraham Lincoln. Mm-hmm. Abraham Lincoln was up for re-election. And it was 27 days before the election. And a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge, not only of the White House, but the Senate. But Honest Abe said, it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime on the highest court of our land. And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people are voting right now. And it should be their decision about who will serve on this most important body for a lifetime.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
People, Susan, are voting right now. They'd like to know if you and Joe Biden are going to pack the Supreme Court if you don't get your way in this nomination.
Let's talk about packing.
Once again gave a non-answer. Joe Biden gave a non-answer.
Straight answer, you know.
People deserve a straight answer. And if you haven't figured it out yet, the straight answer is they are going to pack the Supreme Court if they somehow win this election. Men and women, I got to tell you, people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme Court, if you cherish the separation of powers, you need to reject the Biden-Harris ticket. Come November the 3rd, re-elect President Donald Trump, and we'll stand by that separation of powers in a 9-seat Supreme Court.
Yeah, let's talk about packing the court then. Let's talk about the pack. Yeah, I'm about to. So, the Trump-Pence administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned, and I've witnessed the appointments, for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal. People who are purely ideological, people who have been reviewed by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is black? This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing the court? Let's have that discussion.
All right, thank you, Senator. Let's go on and talk about the issue of racial justice.
I just want the record to reflect she never answered the question. So maybe the next debate, Joe Biden will answer the question. But I think the American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice President. In March, Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency room technician in Louisville, was shot and killed after police officers executing a search warrant in a narcotics investigation broke into her apartment. The police said,
am I voting? I'm going to vote, but the complicated thing about like everything is that, you know, when it comes to voting, I want to like do some research more. Like I'm going to do more research about it, and I think this is important if you're going to vote. I used to be on the Democratic side, but I didn't know anything about the ticket. You know, so when it comes to that, in the last couple of years, I've done a lot more research, and there's some like people, you know, outside of the ticket that I'm going to be looking at, because I'm going to look at both sides. I'm going to see what Trump does, and I'm going to see what Biden does. And, you know, there's going to be certain things that you're going to do. When it comes to electing somebody, you know, make sure you do your research. Don't be voting for somebody because they're Democrat, or don't be voting for somebody because they're Republican. Vote for them because they're best for you, you know? And I feel like that's what, like, people are pressured about. Like, if you're going to vote for Trump, vote for Trump. If you're going to vote for Biden, vote for Biden. Do what makes you happy. If you think that the research is valid, then do it, you know? Even though, like, I have disagreements with some people about how things are going to go, that doesn't mean that you should demonize people, you know? So, you know, I'm planning on voting. I just don't know who yet. So, that's just the thing with me. I don't know. I don't like the fact that Biden support late-term abortions. I just, personally, I don't think that's right. If people think that's okay, that's them. But for me, I don't think it's right. So that's just my thing.
And that's why Joe Biden and I have said on this subject, look, and I'm a former career prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about. Bad cops are bad for good cops. We need reform of our policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will require a national registry for police officers who break the law. We will, on the issue of criminal justice reform, get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and we will decriminalize marijuana. And we will expunge the records of those who have been convicted of marijuana. This is a time for leadership on a tragic issue of honoring Black people in America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me pose the same question to you. In the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life. And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong. But you're entitled to your opinion, Senator. I think, look, and with regard to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd. Justice will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed. I mean, it really is astonishing. Flora Westbrook is with us here tonight in Salt Lake City. Just a few weeks ago, I stood at what used to be her salon. It was burned to the ground by rioters and looters. And Flora is still trying to put her life back together. And I must tell you, this presumption that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that America is systemically racist. And that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities. It's a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. I want everyone
It's
who
warm.
puts on the uniform of law enforcement every day. And President Trump and I stand with you. And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats, Senator Harris, you got up and walked out of the room. And then you filibustered Senator Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor that would have provided new accountability, new resources. But we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety, and supporting our African American neighbors and all of our minorities. Under President Trump's leadership, we'll always stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done from day one and improve the lives of African Americans. Record unemployment, record investments in education, and we'll fight for school choice for all of Americans.
Thank you, Vice
I'd
President.
like to respond.
Senator Harris.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the Vice President on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who was personally prosecuted. Everything from child sexual assault to homicide. I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans. And the reality of this is that we are talking about an election in 27 days, where last week the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn white supremacists.
Not true.
And
Not true.
it wasn't
To
like
be
he didn't
fair,
have a
when it comes to
chance.
Trump, he did do
He
that
didn't
many
do it,
times,
and then he
though.
doubled down.
Do people believe
And
him?
then he said, when
I don't
pressed,
know, but he,
stand by,
I don't know.
stand by.
But didn't Joe Biden say that if you don't vote for him, then you're not black?
Of Donald Trump's. He
So-
called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He instituted as his first act a Muslim ban. He on the issue of Charlottesville, where people were peacefully protesting the need for racial justice, where a young woman was killed. And on the other side, there were neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches, shouting racial epithets, anti-Semitic slurs. And Donald Trump, when asked about it, said there were fine people on both sides. This is who we have as the President of the United States. And America, you deserve better. Joe Biden will be a president who brings our country together
Senator Harris.
and recognizes the beauty in our diversity and the fact that we
Senator
all
Harris,
have
thank
so
you.
much more in common than what separates us.
Vice President Pence, let me give you a minute to respond.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan, is that you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did, comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make. I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted, after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. This is a president who respects and cherishes all of the American people. But you talk about having personally prosecuted. I'm glad you brought up your record, Senator.
Thank you.
I really need to make this
Well,
point.
there are
When you were
racist people that
DA
also have
in San
co-workers
Francisco,
that's
when you
white,
left office,
that's black.
African Americans were
And their
19
friend that's
times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug
And
offenses than
family
whites and Hispanics. When you were Attorney General of California,
Thank you,
you
Vice President.
increased the disproportionate incarceration of
Thank
blacks
you.
in California.
Yeah.
You did nothing on criminal justice reform in California. You didn't lift a finger to
Thank you.
pass the First Step Back on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality is your record
Thank
speaks
you,
for
Vice
itself.
President.
President Trump and I have fought for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice President.
We fought for educational choice and opportunities for African Americans, all of our members.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll do it for 4
Thank you. You know, there is no more important issue than the final issue that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the issue of the election
But
itself.
he attacked my record. I would like an opportunity to respond.
Let me give you 30 seconds because we're running out of
I
time.
appreciate that. First of all, having served as the Attorney General of the state of California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do,
What?
and we will be able to do under a Joe Biden presidency. Our agenda includes what this administration has failed to do. It will be about not only instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes.
Thank you.
Not only,
Thank you, Senator.
I would like to go through.
These are points that you made earlier in the hour, and I want to talk about the election itself before we have to.
But I want to talk about the connection between what Joe and I will do and my record, which includes, I was the first statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents would wear body cameras and keep them on full time. We were the first to initiate a requirement that there would be a training for law enforcement on implicit bias because yes, Joe Biden and I recognize that implicit bias does exist, Mr. Vice President, contrary to what you may believe. We did the work of instituting reforms that were about investing in reentry. This is the work that we have done and the work we will do going forward. And again, I will not be lectured by the Vice President on our record of what we have done in terms of law enforcement and keeping our communities safe and a commitment to reforming the criminal justice system of America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I'd like to pose I'd like you to respond first to the question on our final topic, the election itself. President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If your ticket wins and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what steps would you and Vice President Biden then take? What would happen next? You have 2 minutes.
So I'll tell you, Joe and I are, I think, particularly proud of the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of votes that you've ever seen in a presidential race. Of course, we have the support of Democrats, but also independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our ticket. We have the support of Colin Powell, Cindy McCain, John Kasich, over 500 generals, retired generals, and former national security experts and advisors are supporting our campaign. And I believe they are doing that because they know that Joe Biden has a deep, deep-seated commitment to fight for our democracy and to fight for the integrity of our democracy and to bring integrity back to the White House. And so we believe in the American people. We believe in our democracy. And here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early. Come up with a plan to vote. Go to iwillvote.com. You can also go to joebiden.com. We have it within our power in these next 27 days to make the decision about what will be the course of our
No,
country
not yet.
for the next 4 years. And it is within our power, and if we use our vote and we use our voice, we will win. And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy with what
We'll see in
Donald Trump has been
27
doing, as he
days.
did on the
It
debate
should be
stage last
interesting.
week, when again in front of 70 million people.
But thank you guys for checking out the stream. Thank you guys for
attempted to
watching.
suppress the vote.
And thank you guys for leaving
Joe Biden,
comments
on the other hand,
about
on that same debate stage,
you know,
was clearly
I just
not
want us to have a
going to be
conversation
on
about
record
like
because
this
it's a fake
because
Joe
you know,
Biden on that
I
stage
think
said,
that
"Hey,
it's a
just please vote."
interesting moment
So
in
I'll
time.
repeat what
Like
Joe
whenever
said.
the
Please
election
vote.
comes
Thank
up,
you,
it's
Senator.
like
Vice
huge in
President Pence,
America.
President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role
Who do I
and
think will win?
responsibility as Vice President? What would you
I don't know.
personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election. Because while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years, President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life.
Who do you guys think will win the
I have
election?
confidence that those same Americans that
Let me
delivered that
know.
historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record.
Who do you guys think will win? Do you think Trump will win or Biden? It's kind of hard to tell. I think that Trump will probably pull it off, maybe. Because, I mean, I think he might pull it off. Because I think he's like, he gained more popularity over the years. So, you know.
I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign. I mean, there were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call. And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words, under no circumstances should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules and creating this universal mail-in voting that will create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. And we have a free and fair election. We know we're going to have confidence in it. And I believe
The election always is, it's going to get compromised either way.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote, quote, "When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are 2 candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along?" And then she added, "Your examples could make all the difference to bring us together," end quote. So to each of you in turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute and respond to Brecklin. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute.
Brecklin, it's a wonderful question. And let me just commend you for taking an interest in public life. I started following the news when I was very young. And in America, we believe in a free and open exchange of debate. And we celebrate that. And it's how we've created literally the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States. One very liberal, one very conservative. But what's been learned since her passing was the 2 of them and their families were the very closest of friends. I mean, here in America, we can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight. But when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument, but we always come together and are always there for one another.
Thank you.
In times of need, and we've especially learned that
Thank you,
through the
Vice President.
difficulties of this year.
Senator Harris, what would you say to Brecklin?
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be that is a sign of leadership and is something we should all aspire to be. And that, that brings me to Joe. Joe Biden, one of the reasons that Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier.
Oh my Lord.
It's so
She could have
tragic
just said
that
something nice. Mike Pence said something really, really nice. Now now Harris is bringing up the fact of why you should vote for Joe
Over the
Biden.
course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle. They're working in a bipartisan way. And that's what he's going to do as president.
Oh
Joe
Lord.
Biden has a history of lifting people up and fighting for their dignity. You have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love. And so, Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership, and it will be because we fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Harris.
the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for its hospitality.
All right, so
And
that's
most
the
of all,
debate.
our thanks to all the Americans
You know,
who watched this debate.
a lot of different
Again, our best
points
wishes for a
and
quick
topics.
recovery to President
Um,
Trump, the First Lady, and everyone who is battling COVID-19.
How are
The
you
second
leaning, bro?
presidential debate is next week on October 15th, a town hall style debate in Miami. We hope you'll join us. then.
Leaning. What do you mean by leaning?
And that is the end of the vice presidential debate right there. What a difference a week makes. Two very different personalities on the stage tonight. They showed their personalities throughout.
But yeah, that was a good debate. Not
their opponent was talking.
Biden versus Trump. I mean, when it comes to the election, I think that Trump gained a lot of popularity. And for me, I'm not a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter. Let me just make that perfectly clear. I'm going to go in every election that I go in moving forward. I look at it in an open mind and I do the research first before I even think about, being like, oh, well, let me just vote for this guy because a lot of people, they vote for somebody because they're for a particular party instead of voting for them because of what they're going to do. So I think that if I would pick a winner or I would see who wins, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump win again just because of the popularity that he has. So we'll see. We shall see. But thank you guys for watching this stream. I'm going to try to stream more often. But thank you guys for watching. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you're new. And I'm going to try to do some more videos soon. Let me know what you guys want to watch in the comment section below. But until my next video, until my next stream, I'll see you guys later. Peace.